Okay, I think we're good to go. So hello everyone, I'm Alex Manley, Solution Architect here at Chef in London. I'm going to talk about Chef Delivery and I'm going to try and do a demo, see how the demo gods are with me today. The internet's not very good, but we'll see how we go anyway. So Chef Delivery is a new tool that was released at ChefConf, officially released at ChefConf in beta mode, beta phase, back in April. It is a tool that allows you to control changes out into production, fully tested through a pipeline. Now, just a show of hands, how many people here have developed their own CI tooling pipeline or a full pipeline out into production? A few of you, okay, great. And I guess you're using tools like Go or Jenkins or Bamboo. Is that, do we have any other tooling that you're using? Team City? Yeah. Octopus, yeah. And Chef Delivery, I say we, not me, Chef and the engineers over in the States had worked with a lot of clients. And they kept on coming to them and saying, look, how do we build a pipeline? How do we build a flow? What's the best practice? Tell us what to do. And a lot of the engineers were developing these pipelines for different customers. And they'd always tend to be the same pipelines with the same steps and same stages through them. And so working with these customers and doing this repeatedly, it became clear that there is actually just one pipeline or one flow that you need to go through to take your changes through development, testing, all the way out to production. And so we've developed this one pipeline, and I'm going to talk about that pipeline now. So if you think of the steps that you go through when you're creating change, someone comes up to you and says there's a new feature they want you to write, and you go away and you would create your change. So you'd write your tests first, because that's what all good developers do, and then you'd write your code changes. You would test them all locally on your workstations. You're happy with all of that. You would then submit that into your source control, whatever it is, Git, Subversion, ClearCase, SVN. And that would normally invoke a job or another process to run, to basically pick up that code and run tests on that code in a independent environment from your workstation. And if that's successful, then you can go and you can get your code reviewed, and you can do the peer to a four-eye check on your code to make sure you haven't done anything stupid, you're sticking to standards, and it all looks good. So your code's been reviewed, and then you get your code approved. And generally, you build the code. And so in this phase, this is where you build the artifact. And once you've built the artifact, you might want to store it somewhere. You might want to you want to then test that artifact. And that normally happens in an acceptance test environment. So you deploy that artifact. You run some tests in acceptance. And then that's all successful. So you then need to deliver that change. And that then goes through the release process of going through all of the different environments you need. Get the environment ready, deploy the code, test the code, go on to the next environment until you get out into production. So up here in dark blue, you can see that these are the steps. The manual ones are in dark blue, and then you've got the automated ones just below in grey. So what we've got is this shared pipeline, which is across all your projects and all teams, but it's just one stable pipeline. And so you've got, here's the pipeline, and you would have your different projects. So you may be having teams writing your middleware cookbooks, another team writing your operating system, hardening cookbooks. They would all be individual projects that would go through their own flow and their own cycle. So here you've got Cookbook A and Cookbook B, and then you'd have some application changes. So you've got your business banking application, you've got your website changes. These are different projects that are all going through the pipeline concurrently together, and they're all being reviewed, approved, and delivered. Now we've got these different phases in our pipeline. that union, rehearsals, and delivered. And so when you get to union, this is the important stage where all of your dependencies, so if Cookbook A depends on Cookbook B, they'll be tested together in the union phase. And this is the phase where you might find the majority of dependency breakages that need to be fixed. And the flow from union rehearsal to delivered is just one change is going through. So you may have multiple changes all happening in this, in this section over here together. But as soon as someone delivers that change and it's going through union rehearsals and delivered, it goes through all automated, and there's one change at a time. And if it breaks in union, then you have to go back, make the changes, thoroughly test them, push that through. And if it's successful in union, then you need to do it again in rehearsal, because you want to prove that in a fresh environment that this works again. And once it's gone through rehearsal and that's successful, then it can get delivered. So each of the stages are fixed. There's no changing of these phases, but the stages, sorry, but within each stage you will have different phases, and you can configure what happens in the different phases. So here again, we've got that flow that we were showing you, and generally the first two manual steps happen on your workstation, then you submit a change. This is where Chef Delivery kicks in. And so when you submit a change, you'd have the verify stage, okay? And then there's a manual review process, and then you go into an approval, you approve of the change, and then you've got the build and acceptance stage, and when you deliver, you go through union, rehearsal, and delivered, which we saw on the previous slide. Now, so we have each of these 6 different stages, and each of those has a number of phases. So the verify stage is traditionally just testing the syntax correctness of your code, making sure it's all valid code, it's all written to your standards, and then you do unit testing in that phase as well. The build phase would do the verify phase again, but then you'd have a sort of quality phase where you may do some integration tests, and then you might want some security testing in the security phase, and then you could publish. Maybe you want to publish your artifacts to an artifact repository. And then we've got an acceptance phase, which, if I go back, acceptance phase happens within this stage, so it can happen concurrently with other projects and other teams. And this is the first time that you would deploy your change into a real test environment. So you'd provision the environment, you deploy your change, you do smoke testing, you do your functional testing, and then you do your compliance testing in different phases. Now, you don't need to do these phases, you can skip phases if you want. Like I said, you can configure them all. And the same happens again when you get to union, rehearsal, and delivered. Okay, so this pipeline that's defined, these stages and phases are effectively a recipe. So we're now sort of codifying the workflow, and each of the phases has a separate recipe, and so you can define exactly what happens in that particular phase. So if you're working on a Java application, you could have a particular testing, JUnit running, for example. Maybe you want to do some Selenium testing. If you're doing cookbooks, you can do cookbook testing. You can run Food Critic or Server Spec or any of the testing tools that we have. So here's an example of some code that may be in one of those phases. And again, this is an example of Java where you just execute your JUnit tests. Simple command. But the whole workflow is now codified, and so this workflow can now be put into source control, version controlled, and changes can be monitored and go through the same approval process that your code goes through. So when we say that we're delivering the code, it's where are we actually delivering code? So if we think about the workflow for cookbooks, when you develop a cookbook, at the end of it, again, at the end of it, you may want to upload that code into Chef Supermarket, share that cookbook with other people in the community. You may publish it to your Chef server, or you may actually want to update your infrastructure directly. So there are different endpoints that delivered actually means. And again, you configure what delivered means. And with an application workflow, at the end when you deliver it, you deploy that application to your infrastructure. Okay. So You can easily create pipelines, and we have within your project you have a Git repository for each of your projects. At the moment, the Git repository is in the delivery server. There's work going on at the moment to integrate with GitHub and other tools at the moment. But you can configure from your project what happens in each phase. You can configure which build cookbook to use. And I'm going to talk about delivery truck today. And so you can see this is the icon here on my jersey. It's a cookbook that has all of the different the code that's required to take a cookbook through from development out to production. And I believe I'm going to show you this delivery truck through delivery, but delivery truck is an open source project, and so you can actually take that now and use that with your existing tools at the moment. I believe are you doing a talk on using delivery truck with Jenkins, DevOps Days, Amsterdam? So yeah, it's all open source. Go and have a look at it and use it. It's a great way to get started with delivery if you want to start playing with delivery. So here's an example of a project configuration file. And so here we're saying this is the cookbook we're going to use for this project, my build cookbook. It could be delivery truck. It could be maybe it's my Java cookbook. And then I can define which build nodes we're going to. Now, a build node is, if you're thinking of Jenkins, it's like an agent where the work happens. So these are other nodes where the work actually happens, where you'd run your tests or you'd run your unit test, your integration tests. So you can configure how many build nodes you can have, and you can configure for the different phases which nodes are running these build nodes. Now, to become a build node, it's just another node in your Chef server, but it has a particular cookbook. And what happens, the way delivery works out what build node is, it does a search against Chef server and works out which nodes are build nodes based on the run list. Okay, so here is a high-level architecture diagram. Delivery is written in Erlang. It has a PLSQL database behind it, and it's got Git integrated within it. We have a web browser, which I'm going to show you, and a command line tool to talk to delivery. I'm going to show you both of those. And delivery interacts with the Chef server, searches for your build nodes, and it uses Chef push to dispatch jobs out to those build nodes. So we're not doing the pull mechanism anymore, it's push. So when you get to each of the different gates, you're controlling when the changes happen on the different nodes, when you're doing the different tests. And the job dispatch talks to the build nodes, which then talks back to the delivery server. So do we have any questions at the moment before I think I'm going to a demo? Yes?
You said you can define a build node. What if you want to build on a completely blank node, like complete from scratch?
So you can. So you can spin up a node, and as long as you you register that, bootstrap that node with the Chef server, if you give it the recipe that delivery uses to identify it as a build node, then you can. You'd have to do it separately through another process. Yeah, not at the moment. Through the tool, you can't add and remove. You do it on creation of the delivery cluster at the moment. They are writing on having more features and functions available via the UX and also the delivery CLI as well. But at the moment, it's on creation, and then if you do want to add or remove more build nodes, you can do it. It's just by creating new nodes and just giving them a run list.
So in theory, there's a couple of things you could do. So in the provisioning phase, so there's a provisioning phase which we'll actually talk about, whereas if you actually need to stand up infrastructure, you want to stand up new infrastructure, you can't, which might achieve what you are talking about. And then the other thing is it's just a recipe. So in theory, you could have Chef provisioning, spin up a new machine, and then report back some result from Chef provisioning, right? But then that ties up a build node to go create more build nodes. Those have to get created and run, and then report back. And then that phase would have to say, I'm good or I'm not good.
So actually talking about test kitchen kind of replacement.
Yeah, no, it doesn't do the test kitchen replacement yet. Right?
So if we go back to this diagram here, each of these different phases will be executed on a different builder. And we have in our acceptance union rehearsal and delivered, we've got a provisioning phase. So you could have in this phase, have a builder be used to spin up your test infrastructure, right? Spin up all your test infrastructure, you then deploy to that test infrastructure, run your smoke and functional and compliance tests, and then proceed.
Yeah, because what'll happen is when that provision phase would just look for a node where it can run the provision recipe on, right? And then that could use chef provisioning to actually stand everything up. And then what'll happen is when you hit the deploy phase, a search is going to take place to say, give me the machines where I can actually do the deploy on, right? And so that search criteria could then return the nodes that are actually created in that provision phase. Does that make sense?
Okay, and this really does start going to, you no longer have to pre-provision all of your testing environments, and you start going to a dynamic nature of your testing environments where everything's done on demand, which is pretty cool. So, do we have any more questions before I continue? No? Okay, so this is where it all goes wrong. I'm going to do the demo, so I'm going to sit down for this because there's... Right. Okay, I'm just going to assume that I am, and let me just refresh this page. Yeah, okay, good. I'm on the VPN. Right, let me make this a bit smaller. Now this, obviously, has been resized for the projector. Okay, so this is the delivery UI. And there's a dashboard which shows you all of the different stages, and if you had lots of different projects running, you could then have a kind of information about what's running where, or how many different changes are going through for your different phases. And that doesn't work. Let me go like that. That's a bit better. Okay. So I have this project, and it's got a demo project, and if I go there, I've got I've got an organization. So I've got my enterprise, my organization is demo, and I have these 3 different projects, and I've got the simple web project which I'm going to push changes through, and I don't have any changes going through at the moment, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to quickly just show you the chef server that shows you the cluster. So on here you can see we have, I don't know how I can expand these actually. So you can see I've got build node, it's build node 1, build node 2, build node 3. I have an acceptance environment, I've got a delivery environment, I've got a union environment, I've got an analytics engine, and I've got my delivery server. Okay, so and I'll just show you, this is an application that I am going to update. So here are the different environments. There's union, accepted, and so at the moment it says hello Belfast DevOps. So I was at Belfast on Tuesday doing a meetup there, and I changed the application to be that. So today it's going to change it to London. Right. So let me work out. So I'm going to take you through the flow that you generally, the workflow you would go through as a cookbook developer. So here we're doing a cookbook workflow. So it's not an application, this is the flow of getting my cookbook developed, tested, and then out into the infrastructure. So all I've done previously is I've edited an attributes file which contains text. I've bumped the version in the metadata file, and then I've committed my change to my local repo. So I didn't want to do that in front of you because I'm very bad on the keyboard, so I did that up front. Okay. So
last time you forgot to commit.
Yeah, last time I forgot to commit and I had to redo it. It was all highly embarrassing. You know, I'm going to be a good developer and I'm going to test everything locally. So there's Rubicop. That was fine. Food Critic was fine. And what's the last one I'm going to do? RSpec. Do my unit testing. Now, I should have done this and then I checked in, but you know, you can see where I'm going with this. So, After I've done my local changes, then I'm going to use a command line interface into delivery, and I'm going to deliver my changes. So it's going to be my patch set is going to be submitted to the delivery server, and it's going to start off the flow in the pipeline. So if I type delivery, you can see we have this tool that has lots of different sub-commands where I can check out projects, I can initialize projects, I can run jobs directly, I can create my security token. But what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to do a delivery review. Okay. So this is now talking to my delivery server. It's going to spin up a page. I could have put in an option to not bring that page up. I just didn't know what the option was. And we'll just wait for it to load. Here we go. So we can see automatically it's in the verify stage. And if I click on here, we can see actually the unit test has gone through. The lint test has gone through, and the syntax there, you saw it was waiting for a worker. So I have a couple of builder nodes, and some of the phases are happening in parallel. And if I go down, I can see what's happening in this. This is which phase is this? Unit phase. So here it's done RSpec, no errors there. Okay. So now we just have to wait. Okay, so the verify stage has happened. Now we've got the review stage. So quite happy, independently, all of the unit testing, the lint testing has happened. Michael, get off. Okay, so I'm going to start a review. So here, I had this the other day. I'm going to refresh this page. Okay, so
I swear it's not me.
Out of memory. What's going on there? Let me go back. Okay. Well, yeah, I think Michael. I'm using Michael's.
Well, no, I'm not statically defined.
Well, do you know what? I think.
Crap DHCP server.
I think the network might have dropped, to be honest.
You might have to unplug or change the resolution. Open up display and change the resolution.
Okay, just bear with me. A few technical issues here with the network. Right.
I was trying to make this more interactive, so where like I could go in and like you're talking.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So what do I want to do? Change the.
I get 1080p.
Can we all see that?
Well, now you can make it bigger once you get to that.
Okay.
Connected, yeah.
There we go. I think. Okay, we're back on. Right. Put that up there. Okay. So, let's make this slightly bigger. And we'll see, we should be back to the approval stage. Okay, so here is my list of changes that have gone through. So you can see that here's a history of all the different changes that have gone through. So I can look back, see the different people that have put submitted patch sets and the status of them going through the pipeline. Okay, so we're back on the review phase. Now there's different roles for different users. At the moment I'm an administrator, I can do everything, but you'd break this down into different roles for different projects. So I would be delivering the code, someone else would be going in and reviewing the code, and here you can see the different files that I've changed. So if you can see on my attributes, you can see I've changed the text from Belfast DevOps delivery to London DevOps delivery. You can comment on here, looks good, if I get that on there. Okay, and then I've got to make this smaller again. Where's that now? There we go. Okay, and then if I come back out of here, what I'm going to do is, here it is. Bear with me. I'm going to copy this. Oh, and where am I here? So you can do things like you can do in GitHub, where you can, put in pictures. Pictures say a lot more than words. If the network comes up. Okay. So we're happy. We've reviewed the code. Going to go for it. And now you click the approve button. This is then going to push it through to the next stage on that pipeline. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the status. So we've approved it. We're now in the build phase. You can see the build is now running. Now again, this is going to do all of the tests that it did in the verify stage, and then you may do some other tests here. So you may run test kitchen in some of these phases, and once it's successful, it's going to automatically move into the acceptance phase, where it's going to provision, deploy, and test the acceptance phase and deploy to an actual machine. So while that is going on, what I'm going to do is open up Sublime and find the right one. Okay. Right, so this is my project, and I just wanted to go in and show you the configuration file for my project, the simple web project. So let me make this slightly bigger. Okay, so it's a simple configuration, and here I'm saying which cookbook to use. We were using Delivery Truck, which is the one I spoke about earlier. And then I'm defining to skip these different phases. For this project, I'm not fussed about smoke or security testing. In fact, it looks like I'm not really fussed about any testing. But you can see that so the whole point is that the stages and the phases are fixed, but you can skip them if you want, and then you can configure them to do what you want within those different phases. And then within Delivery Truck, I'm passing through some attributes that cookbook requires. And so here I'm saying when we do a publish, it's going to publish to the chef server. I could have said supermarket, and we could have put publish to the chef supermarket or to my infrastructure. So you could write your own cookbooks and plug them in here, and your project would follow that cookbook. Okay. There was other things in the slide deck that showed you how to identify which build nodes to run different phases in as well. So let me go back and see where we are. Okay, so acceptance is good, right? We've done a deployment, and you can see we've executed, we've updated my environment, and then we've dispatched a push job to that environment to then invoke chef client really on that node to reconverge. So let me go into my acceptance. So I'm going to just refresh the page, see where we are. There we go. Hello London Technology Week, DevOps Delivery. So you can see now this is where you go in and you go and poke around, check everything's as you think it should be before you click the deliver button, because this is the final point in this process where you get the human interaction. Everything after this is going to be automated through the different environments until it gets to production. No, I don't want that. Sorry, I want to go back here. Okay, so let's have a look at the smoke, and we can see that phase is skipped. Can you see that slightly at the bottom? Let me close that one. And it's skipped because that's what I told the project to do, to skip that phase. So now I'm going to go and deliver. And again, I just need to refresh this page. So my button is enabled, and obviously you'd have a different user coming in who's authorized to come and deliver this change. And so now we're going to go into the union phase. So now imagine you have 2 or 3 cookbooks, and we've written one cookbook here which is dependent on other cookbooks. So this is my web site, but I am deploying that into Apache. So my Apache project they may have actually made a change. Maybe they've renamed the recipe or something. So at this point, this is where you would find the errors and the dependencies. And if you find the errors, you'd need to fix them because no changes can go through. My pipeline is now blocked until it goes through and gets fixed. So union is now successful. Again, it's the same as that happened in acceptance. Rehearsal is now working. We're on the provision step. If I go back to, now if I click on the next environment, which is union, and refresh that page, well, hey, that's changed. Okay, so another thing I want to show you is how we're plugged into analytics and how analytics is showing what's changed. I just need to log in. Okay, so Michael mentioned earlier about analytics and the timeline of events. So here is my event stream that's coming through, and is, sorry? Yes, I can, sorry. Okay, so this is telling me everything that's changed in the chef server and also everything that's changed in my infrastructure. So you can see that this user delivery has updated the environment rehearsal, and then you can see the actual node then got converged. And so here there's a new event that's come in, the environment delivered was updated, and so now that's updated, there we go, the delivered's coming through. So you can see these events coming in real time. And the great thing about these events is you can now have rules and notifications on them. So you can write rules, as Michael said earlier, about, you know, if someone's manually uploading a cookbook, alert me, let someone know. So we've got rules here. We've got one simple rule, and yeah, this is just creating an audit warning. I have other slides that show you. You can basically query the data of the event, and based on that data of the event, you can then either notify other people, you can audit the events, and I think they appear in the alerts. Okay, so yeah, you. Yeah, we got a marching band downstairs. Yeah, so yeah, you can see these alert notification alerts coming through, and notifications. We've got a few set up here. I don't think they're actually configured to do anything, but if I do a new one, you can see you've got a webhook, so I can notify via just standard webhook. We've got HipChat, email, and Splunk configured, and I think there are more notification integrations that are coming. Okay, so let's go back. There we go. We have the pipeline's gone through. It's gone through union. It's gone through rehearsal. It's gone through delivered. We'll just go to straight to delivered. Refresh that page, and there we have it. So yeah, that was it. That was delivery. At the moment, it is in beta mode. We are getting people onboarded, and we are working with customers to really make this the best delivery product possible. So we're really getting client feedback before it's released on the open market. We want to just really refine the use cases and the way that people would use this tool. You know, things like updating the UX so that you can configure your build nodes and all sorts of things. So we do have a web page. chef.io/delivery. From there you can sign up for updates to find out what's going on, and you know, a bit more description about it. We have a few demos which you go on to Get Chef on YouTube. We have some demos from ChefConf which show a bit more detail and a bit more depth about delivery. So that's it from me. I hope you found that informative. And we'll all take any questions because there's quite a few chef guys here. So
is chef delivery hosted by chef, and what's the minimum infrastructure that we need to run?
okay, so it's not hosted as a SaaS. It just needs one server to run. I think you could co-host it in a chef server, but it's not optimal. And minimally, you just need a chef server and the delivery server. But like I said, you can start using Delivery Truck to really start getting your pipe, you know, start using that pipeline without having the UI behind it. So you can plug delivery truck, so each of the different things that are happening in the different phases, you can put that into Jenkins for the different build steps of your job, for example, right? So you could then mimic, if you like, in another tool, Go or TeamCity, whatever, to use that cookbook. And I don't know, is it going to be recorded, the DevOps days?
I have no idea, but
We'll put it on a blog or something. There'll be something that'll come
at the
out.
next meetup or later
Yeah.
at this meetup.
Yeah, we can do it in another meetup, show you how to use delivery truck with your existing tools.
So just a sort of question about how the whole pipeline thing works, because you were saying at this point, you know, you're blocked and you go back and fix it. Now, presumably multiple pipelines can be happening at the same time, and so.
Well, there's one pipeline,
Oh right.
but
okay.
there's different projects within that pipeline.
Yeah, yeah. So the union phase is like a blocker on everyone. So can you not just say, actually, that guy is not ready for prime time yet. Let's bypass him and go forward. Does that make some sense?
Well, I guess it's on when you click the deliver button.
Right. Okay.
So, you know, you could have lots of different projects that are waiting to be delivered, and I guess that's the last human intervention.
Oh,
and
as
so,
soon as someone says, yeah, this can be delivered,
Exactly.
It's then a blocker.
yes.
Right, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
You have anything on the Jenkins post-built pre-built steps? So if something's successful, you know, sort of do
Post and pre-build. Well, after it's been delivered, you mean to go and actually test that it's in production yeah. So when you go through the different acceptance, union, rehearsal, delivered, it does a provision, then it does a deploy, and then it has some. I think it's got smoke and security. So you know you could configure the smoke test to actually do the test to check, right, is my database installed, are these ports working, does SQL Plus work, can I hit this web page and is this text being displayed using other tools like Selenium or whatever testing tools. At that point you can plug in to validate the deployment. In the, and again you can do that in the delivered stage, and if delivered is production, sorry?
You can chain other jobs into after one successful. I know you say union, but everything's falling into place at once. But sometimes you might want to do another new job based on.
Oh, well, okay.
And then I take it back up and I supply it. It's just updated.
I guess you could write, I mean, because each of these phases are a recipe, you could write your own recipe to do whatever you want in those phases. So if you want to back up your database in one of the phases with deploying something else, you can do that. So however you're backing up the database, you might have a cool script to do that at that point. But that's the point, it's highly configurable. It is a fixed, so a lot of people are like, you got a fixed pipeline, every project's different. You have different, some people have pre-prod, some people have UAT, some people have whatever, there's X number of test environments, but this really is based on, doing this multiple times with multiple customers, that this is what we've seen as best practice.
So it's kind of assuming that your whole pipeline, whole delivery is in Chef, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and you're controlling the workflow, so you're controlling, there's role-based access, so you control who can make the changes, who can submit patches, and if you think about having analytics and the audit and the workflow, you can really put compliance about who's allowed to do what, who's allowed to change the workflow, right? You maybe not want to allow anyone to change the workflow. We now have audit mode in the Chef client, which can, after you've converged, it can run audits to test that, these ports are open, and there's multiple ways of doing it.
Yeah, you said we can skip the smoke test and compliance. Is there any way we can change this flow? Like there's a one project and we don't require unit, there's no point to use unit.
Yeah, so like I said, the stages are fixed and the phases are fixed, but you can just skip the phase if you want. right?
Or we can
Add more. At the moment, I don't believe
I
you
don't
can.
think so.
Yeah.
Not yet.
But
No.
there are 6 phases. We can add more or no?
No.
No, not at the moment. No. So I can put that to engineering and find out if they're planning to do that. But really, it is a fixed set of stages, fixed set of phases. You can cut some out if you want. Maybe in the future they'll allow you to add some more phases, because I don't see why it would be that hard really, because it's just running a recipe, different recipes in order.
For cookbook testing, does it expect one repo per cookbook or like one super repo to run those?
It works off one cookbook per project, one repo per project, which is a cookbook in the cookbook flow. I think. We don't do the one big repo for this. Yeah, it's one cookbook, one repo.
And in this case, it would be the project. So each project is essentially analogous to a cookbook.
Yes.
So, just a question about how do you sort of roll out changes that are to do with, for example, database? Say if I want to change a user and I wanted to roll out that.
So at the moment, this workflow delivery truck is purely for cookbooks, and it's a cookbook flow. And in the future, we are going to have application flows, and I think it's been earmarked for .NET and Java flows to start off with. And when you get to the application flows, I guess you can then put in the database side of things. And with databases,
No, sorry, I was saying data bags, like data bags, like Chef data bags. So, for example, if you're using the users cookbook and you put in the wrong variables, you get slightly odd behaviour. Say if you say remove, but you leave in the email address or something, then when you're trying to retrieve the data, it might look like the user is still there. Or like if you leave the home directory in, it can create a home directory in some circumstances and things like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure actually. You're right, because cookbooks, the data bags are outside cookbooks. So,
well, I think the data bags, in theory, some people's opinion would be that the data bags should have their own repo and push through a repo, just like roles and environments and other.
So
kind of
you would
artifacts like
contain
that.
them like an application.
Yes.
Push them through it.
And you would push them through, and they would be part of the same.
Yeah.
They would do another project.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it makes sense because that's the state you're managing and pushing through. I think that was so.
Where does test kitchen fit into that?
So test kitchen in one of the phases, maybe functional. You could put in there in that cookbook, in that recipe, the functional. You could put run kitchen test, and then that would spin up your environment, run your Docker, or your Vagrant, or whatever.
And it also fits into the local workstation testing before you even get to the delivery environment, right? And that's all the tooling that we built to test as much as you possibly can locally before you push it into it.
So I'm just going to bring this one back up. So
Number two.
Yeah, over here, we're in your local workstation, but you could have it in a quality. I suggest quality would be a good one, because that's where you do the integration testing after you've done the unit testing. And if you look at those recipes, you can actually see in delivery truck the recipe just calling out execute food critic or execute test kitchen. So
is it going to be a trucker in it?
Oh, what?
Trucker in it? Like the kitchen.
I don't know.
There's a delivery in it.
There is, and that
which then creates the skeleton configuration file that you need. So the interesting thing about delivery is, and you kind of already touched on this, but it's basically all the tooling that runs the one the user interacts with, but also any automation system would interact with. So like Jenkins can just call delivery job or phase you want to run, and it'll read the cookbook, get the cookbook that needs to get the cookbook, and run all of those phases that you tell it to run. So it makes it so much easier in trying to set up a cookbook workflow with Jenkins, because you can use delivery CLI to actually give you the skeleton you need.
So that kind of
Yeah.
It's kind of sounds like it's a bit like Maven profiles, where you can call different areas.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But in Cookbooks we don't have Maven, so yeah. So exactly. Good analogy.
Cool.
It tracks Git, but how does it fit with GitHub? Where does it stand?
Okay, at the moment, the Git repo that delivery is using is integrated into the delivery server. But they are working on the integration with GitHub and other source control management tools. That's tooling that's coming. That's all new features that are all coming.
When would it be possible to try this instead of implementation?
So you can try delivery truck now, and you can start getting used to what's happening under the covers with delivery truck to manage your cookbook workflow if you're working with cookbooks.
And delivery CLI is part of that.
And the CLI, right.
Where are we at with the preview, AWS preview stuff?
Maybe the end of the summer?
Okay. So we're working on where you can go to a page, you can register, you can say, give me a delivery environment, and we'll launch you a delivery environment in AWS on our credit card or on our bill, and you'll give you like 2 weeks when you can play around with delivery. We'll give you some pipelines as well that you can commit to and figure out how the workflow works and play around with it. And then that'll allow you to kind of, one, it allows us to collect feedback of what we're missing. And then two, it'll give you an idea of how to use delivery. But then there's a good webinar that says, it's called Getting Your Organization Ready for Delivery. And it basically walks you through this whole idea of the phases you need to start putting in place and a workflow and foundation that you need to put in place so that when delivery is actually ready, you can just put delivery on top of the workflow that you've already built, right? So delivery CLI and delivery truck are two big components to where if you start using those tools to deliver your cookbooks, when delivery comes out, you'll be that much more ahead and ready to actually take delivery into your organization.
And you can just download the delivery truck and you can see there the phases and those examples of how to do a cookbook pipeline. And you can start to then realize how you can share it with other not just cookbooks but applications as well. It's quite insightful.
Yeah, there's a couple other things to do. There's one, delivery sugar. That's a little bit of shortcuts and some other custom resources. And you can really start to see all the different components and things that we're going to be, the delivery will be watching, right? How many cookbooks have changed out of your project so that it knows what to test. It's not testing extra things if you're not requiring that. And a couple of other, interesting little bits and pieces that the teams have already put in there. All and those components are all open source. The one thing about the tools that Alex talked about, things that are available now, delivery truck and delivery sugar cookbooks in our chef-cookbooks organization on GitHub, they're open, they're cross-platform. The delivery CLI right now we're building only for Ubuntu, so we have a package cloud repo, you can download that stuff. The automatic builds right now are only happening for Ubuntu. We expect that to change sometime in the release cycle between now and when delivery starts to come out, but the CLI components right now are only for
Except I know there is a Windows one being played around with.
Yeah, it's not ready yet.
Yeah, no. But it's being played around. So this is delivery truck, and I can't increase the font on the folders on the left hand side. So you've got the recipes, and they're the recipes of all the different phases. And here I'm showing the lint recipe, and so you can see in the linting phase it's executing Food Critic, and then it's executing Rubicop. And then if I go into unit, it's running RSpec. So this is the flow it's going through. You don't need to take a photo because you can actually download this on GitHub, have a look, have a play, integrate it with your existing flows. So.
At the unit state, we maintain the state of the project. Let's say we have 4 projects. 2 have successfully integrated. They have completed 2 phases, but 3rd and 4th have problem. So at unit stage, union flow, we don't want to integrate again for A and B. Just C and D will continue once they finish their work.
Okay, so if a problem happens anywhere before you click the deliver button, and then deliver means it's going to go to union, rehearsal, thingy, anything that happens before there is just blocking its own project. It's not blocking the rest of the pipeline. And then if a project, you click deliver on a project, and then that goes into union, and it breaks in union, then that's when it needs to be fixed. And you need to go and either revert or fix forward.
You can back out. Back out. You mean let others go through?
I think you'd need to either fix forward or reapply a previous cookbook. It depends on what the cookbook's actually doing. You know, it depends if it's an application flow and you're creating new resources that are not managed. It all depends on the scenario of what you're actually doing. But with the cookbook, I think you could quite easily just reapply an old version of the cookbook. Unblock it.
So the human testing occurs at the project level.
Yes.
So how would you have cross-project dependencies? You make change to multiple projects with depending on each other, and you want to test them as a one set. How do you illustrate that?
So you would need to have a lot of automated testing. If you're doing applications which are dependent on other parts. The whole point of this is to automate the whole flow and automate everything through. And I know from past experience, automating testing is hard. You know, you've got web apps that you need to, create the Selenium scripts and keep them up to date and get all your load tests and your performance tests. That's the hard part. Getting the tests, creating the tests, but then just plugging in from the phase, just executing that test. That's the easy part, and we give you the scaffolding to allow you to do that all in the flow. But I don't know how you do the multiple dependencies before you get to
human testing.
Well, one thing you can do is, as I said before, everything is a cookbook. So that final deployment stage at the very end of deliver is a cookbook. So that doesn't have to necessarily actually upgrade your systems. That can be deploying into somewhere, and then you can have a chance to review it on the union or whatever you beforehand. So that is a possibility. If you need to have that extra gate, you can put that in after the end of the delivery workflow. Have delivery give you an artifact, then you have a very simple thing to say yes, go separately. Although it's not ideal, because you should be working towards having full automated testing.
Automating testing is not nice.
Like 2016.
It's what?
2016.
So for this thing, what's going on here?
So this is delivery truck. It's one of the phases.
Yeah. So in delivery truck, how does it work out what cookbooks that it needs to run the tests on? If there is a bit of magic that just does it without any configuration, that would be awesome. But I was just wondering the sort of level of configuration that needs to happen.
I think it's taken from the project.
Right.
I think it's passed in as an attribute from the project that goes through and control. I mean, you can see it's a variable that's passed in cookbook name.
So it's sort of.
Change underscore cookbooks is something that gets loaded in by Chef Sugar or by Delivery Sugar. So it's actually digging around in your repo a little bit for things that have changed.
Yeah, I would just sort of to go on to what my problem is. It's like, say if I update, I wanted to work out a way if I update a cookbook which has a loose dependency. If I update a cookbook and then that goes through my pipeline, and there's something else that has a loose dependency on that then gets upgraded. At what point would I say, oh, yeah, this also needs to be tested as well because now it's reliant on this cookbook, for example? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that would be the union phase.
The union.
Yeah. So if you take a simple example, I tried to explain it earlier, that let's say you've got Apache as one cookbook, and then I've got my website as the other cookbook. My website depends on Apache. Someone makes a change to the recipe over here, and then I push my website through. Is when I get to the union phase, then it's going to pull in the new version of the Apache, and that's going to break.
Yeah, right.
And then you'd have to investigate.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah. The practices that you'll be practicing, before you get to delivery, will be like cookbook pinning for dependencies and things like that, making sure that all that stuff is rock solid before you roll into one of these automated.
Yeah.
So some of that will be mitigated with the with things that are available now with pinning. Other stuff, like as we get closer to what this is going to look like at a release, the integration pieces for like union and rehearsal, a lot of that will shake out in those phases too.
So would delivery be managing, like actually updating all the dependencies, like in metadata delivery, like when you push it?
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
We've been talking about that back and forth, and in some of the pipelines that we have built, the build server does do that automatically, and then others that we've built, we decided not to do that. So I'm not sure what they decided for delivery yet. I don't know that it has been decided yet.
Yeah, we've been told that the dependencies are going to be, that's the union phase, that's when it's going to bring in all the other dependencies and it's going to test them together. How those dependencies are managed at the moment, I'm not quite sure. And I think that's, with all the customer testing and the customer work we're doing, we're working out what the right approach is.
But does it say that, like at the union stage, does it say that list anywhere?
No.
Is it
I
not
don't
available?
think so, not
No.
yet. There's like you said.
But we should be using things like, if it's cookbooks, you should be using things like Bookshelf anyway, and the lock files to lock down versions. So, what do you think? Does it look like you'd like to try it out, give it a go?
I'd really like to try it out, to be honest.
Pardon?
I'd like to try it out.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, keep posted, because I'm sure there'll be notifications soon, So if there are no more questions, I think we should continue at the bar.
Okay.